It was an ordinary Saturday morning when the Johnson family gathered for breakfast in their cozy kitchen, the smell of freshly made pancakes filling the air. The sun streamed through the windows, casting a soft golden glow on everything in its path. Birds chirped merrily outside, adding a pleasant melody to the otherwise peaceful morning. The children bickered playfully, while the clink of silverware and the sounds of casual conversation filled the room. In the midst of all this, Buddy, the family's loyal golden retriever, sat by the back door, tail wagging gently as he always did. He was a constant presence in their lives, protective, gentle, and always by their side. The morning felt perfect. The world outside their home seemed far away, untouched by the chaos that sometimes surrounded them. Mrs. Johnson, Sarah, smiled over at her husband, John, as they shared a quiet moment of contentment. It was one of those days when everything felt right. But Buddy, sitting by the door, felt something was off. His normally joyful demeanor shifted. His ears perked up and his tail stopped wagging. His nose twitched, sniffing the air as though detecting something unseen. His eyes locked onto the back door, and a deep, low growl rumbled from his throat. It was unlike anything the family had heard before. "Buddy, what's wrong, boy?" John asked, his voice tinged with concern as he looked at the dog. Buddy's usual calm nature was gone. He stood up, pacing back and forth, his growls growing louder and more urgent. The children, noticing Buddy's strange behavior, giggled and teased him. But there was an underlying unease in the air. Buddy's eyes were wide with a strange, frantic energy, his body tense and his movements erratic. Suddenly, the faintest crackling sound broke through the peaceful morning, a sound that wasn't there before. At first, it was barely audible, like static on a radio, but within seconds it grew louder and unmistakable. The unmistakable sound of crackling flames. John's heart skipped a beat. The smell of smoke started to seep through the kitchen, thick and pungent. The fire was approaching, moving faster than anyone could have anticipated. "Fire!" Buddy barked, racing toward the back door. His voice was filled with an alarming urgency, one that left no room for doubt. He scratched frantically at the door with his paws, his cries growing more desperate by the second. It was as though he could sense the danger far beyond what they could see. "Get out now!" John shouted to his family. The urgency in his voice snapped everyone into action. The kids froze for a moment, their eyes wide with confusion and fear, but then they scrambled toward the front door, just as John grabbed Sarah's arm. The flames had already started licking at the back of the house, and the heat was unbearable. Buddy was already ahead of them, darting out into the yard, his instincts telling him that they needed to leave immediately. He ran in circles, barking louder, trying to lead them away from the danger, but John had no choice but to push his family to safety first, watching over his shoulder at the dog. Buddy, however, wasn't following them. Instead, he raced toward the back gate, his body rigid with purpose. "Buddy, no! Get back here!" John shouted in frustration, but the dog didn't listen. He was too far gone, already driven by something he couldn't explain. The heat of the fire became overwhelming as they rushed from the house. The smoke was thick now, making it difficult to breathe. The roar of the flames grew louder by the second, the intensity of the fire sending waves of heat across the yard. But Buddy, ever the protector, was nowhere to be seen. Minutes later, John caught sight of Buddy, emerging from the smoke, his body coated with ash. The dog's eyes were wide, almost panicked. But there was something strange about the way he was moving. He wasn't running away from the fire. He was heading toward them, carrying something in his mouth. John's breath caught in his throat when he saw what Buddy was holding. A small, charred box. Buddy dropped the box gently at John's feet, his eyes filled with a deep sadness, as if he understood the weight of the moment. The dog's paws were singed, and his fur was singed in places, but his eyes never left John's face. "Buddy, what is this?" John muttered, his voice barely above a whisper. Sarah leaned forward in shock. "Is that Mom's old jewelry box?" John's hands trembled as he bent down to open the box, the lid creaking slightly as it gave way. Inside was something unexpected, a letter, its edges singed and curling, but the ink was still readable. As John unfolded the letter with a sense of dread, Sarah gasped when she recognized the handwriting. The letter read, "My dearest John and Sarah, if you are reading this, It means I am no longer here to protect you. For years, I have kept a secret, hoping that it would never be revealed. But the time has come for you to know the truth. The fire that is now consuming your home was no accident. And Buddy, the dog you know and love, isn't just a pet. He's been your guardian, your protector, for reasons you don't yet understand. He knows what's coming, and he's been warning you all along. The truth is much darker than you realize. They've been watching, waiting, and Buddy knows who they are. Protect him, and he will protect you. With all my love, Sarah. John's hand trembled as he finished reading the letter, the words sinking in like cold stones in his chest. What did Sarah mean by all of this? Who were they? And why was Buddy the key to their safety? Buddy sat down beside John, his eyes never leaving the letter, as though he understood what was at stake. His body was still tense, alert, scanning the area. It was as though the dog knew something beyond the family's comprehension. But whatever it was, Buddy was ready to protect them from it. Over the next few weeks, the Johnsons found themselves living in fear, not just from the fire, but from an unseen threat. Their home was gone, destroyed by the blaze, but even more unsettling was the knowledge that they were being watched. Strange figures began appearing around their neighborhood, shadowy figures who seemed to lurk in the background, always just beyond reach. John would catch glimpses of them, but when he looked closely, they were gone, like phantoms. Buddy, however, wasn't fooled. He remained vigilant, always by John's side, his protective instincts on high alert. He wouldn't leave their side even when it seemed like the danger had passed. Then one night, John received a strange phone call. The voice on the other end was barely audible, but it was unmistakably familiar. "John, it's not over. They're coming. You need to listen to Buddy." The line went dead before John could ask any questions. When he looked over at Buddy, the dog was staring out the window, his tail stiff and his eyes narrowed with suspicion. He had heard something John couldn't. The following days were filled with unease. John began to notice more unusual things: strange vehicles parked outside the house, unfamiliar faces walking around the neighborhood. Every day someone was watching. But who and why? One night after the kids had gone to bed, John found a note slipped under the door. The handwriting was frantic, almost illegible, but the words were unmistakable. "Buddy knows what they want. Protect him." The chilling words made John's blood run cold. Who were these mysterious people? And why did they want Buddy? What was it that the dog knew? As the days passed, the family began to piece together the truth. Buddy was no ordinary dog. He was more than a pet. He was a protector, a guardian who had been watching over them for years. The danger they faced was something far greater than they had imagined, and it was clear that Buddy was the only one who truly understood it. In the end, the Johnsons learned a painful lesson. They understood now that the love and loyalty of a dog ran deeper than they had ever realized. Buddy wasn't just a family pet. He was their hero, their silent protector, who had saved them from something they could never have understood on their own. And as John and Sarah sat on the porch one evening, watching Buddy sleep peacefully at their feet, they knew that no matter what lay ahead, they would never be alone. Not with Buddy by their side. He was their protector, their hero, and the one who had always been there when they needed him the most.